From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Good evening. Tonight, more crowds gather at NIMC offices across the country as applicants for the National Identity Number ask for further extension of the deadline for linking of NIN with their mobile phone SIMs. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy clarifies policy on NIN and mobile SIMs integration, says decision in linkage made about 11 months ago. We continue our 2020 sectoral review. Tonight, we turn our attention to the economy. And UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson signs post-Brexit trade deal after MPs overwhelmingly approved the agreement with the EU. Plus, you'll see business, sports and international news. On business news tonight, Afrexim Bank and Credit Suisse complete $1 billion 3-year syndicated term loan for Nigeria's Bank of Industry.
On sports news tonight, the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development announces that Nigeria will compete in 11 sports at the Tokyo Olympics.
It does appear that the new deadline of January 19th, 2021 for the linking of the telephone subscribers' national identity numbers with their SIMs may be difficult to beat. This becomes evident given the number of people who now daily troop to NIMC offices and other registration centres to be enrolled all across the country. We begin in the south, where some of the applicants are already calling for yet another extension of the new deadline and opening of more centres, while lamenting the slow pace of the registration process.
94, 95, 96, your ID card and your number, please.
It's a huge relief for those whose numbers fall in this category being called out, as it indicates progress in this extremely daunting exercise. Hundreds of residents in Delta State are here to register for the National Identity Number, racing against time from a deadline set by the federal government.
We've been giving them the suggestion to bring number. They refuse. Write names. At the end of the day, they will still allow people they know to enter.
The officials of NIMC are also under immense pressure, as the number of people thronging the office appears overwhelming. The same fever pitch excitement is present in Akwa Ibom State. A lot of people, a lot of noise, not a lot happening in terms of results. The crowd at the registration office in Ebonyi State is lean in comparison to the first two locations, but the frustrations are the same.
I just came, they now sent me to the other place, say it's the other side. I went that side, they now say it's this place. We're just moving around since morning.
The data that they're collecting here, we can give it over there from your house. All you needed to do is, if they have a strong site, and you can load whatever you need to do there and submit, just like when you do your JAM forms. It will be a very fantastic exercise.
In Oyo State in the southwest, people make their way in and out of the registration center, many without answers. Inside the office, the activity of getting people registered is on. The director, NIMC in Oyo State, Mr. Shola Shotayo, tells Channels Television that the major hindrance faced by the Commission is impatience.
Nigerians are so impatient, they want to get it done and they want it now.
Ekiti State is also witnessing a rush by people who are yet to register. The people allege sales of the registration forms by the NIMC.
I made it time to be here by 2 in the night. You understand me now? But the funnest part of it is that form that they are selling.
We have educated them, we have addressed them that we are short of form and that people should go online. We gave the website that people should go to and download their form.
But the pressing task of obtaining an NIN or NIN number and the thought of the failure of not meeting the deadline pushes that to the background.
In the nation's capital, Abuja, and some other northern states, from Kaduna to Kwara and Jigawa, the scenes at the NIN registration centres call for a more effective process. But the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Pantami, is explaining that the decision to merge the NIN with the subscriber identification module was made since February the 4th, 2020. He was speaking during a visit to the headquarters of the Commission in Abuja, blaming the crowd witnessed at the enrollment centres on what he described as last-minute rush by telephone subscribers.
A large crowd of Nigerians at the enrollment centres for the National Identification Number. In northwest Nigeria, residents of Kaduna and Jigawa State besieged the office of the National Identity Management Commission in a bid to beat the deadline. However, they are lamenting the slow process of registration.
I've been here like as early as 5, and also now I've not even written my name because the procedure is very stressful. You don't even know what to start, how to even start it.
The challenges is that since 3 days back, I'll be here. After they do a little, because we are many, after a little while, we'll go back home and come the following day to join the line again.
In Kwara State, the story is the same as hundreds of residents gather at the NIMC office.
This is my first time of coming to this place. Whenever I come here, I usually meet 200 people. The ones who are supposed to give us information by the June of this year that they give us 6 months to do this registration. But they give us, they say they about only 1 month to do this thing. It's not easy.
So they're supposed to put this thing online. Maybe people should be doing it. Let them do it through BVN. Look at Mazis. Now, look at if there's anybody with Corolla now, that is all the people here as packet.
To ease the process, the Commission introduced a booking arrangement which takes cognizance of COVID-19 protocols.
Sir.
The Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Pantami, blames the crowd on the last-minute rush for the registration.
This policy of linking national identity with SIM is not today or last week or 2 weeks, as some people say. This policy was announced by the federal government since on 4th February 2020, and it was given to NCC by federal government in writing that this period from February to December, you must ensure the process is completed. More than 10 months, and it is only 2 weeks they started rushing.
Apart from the registration at the various NIMC centres, the federal government has given approval for some private firms to assist in the enrolment process.
Rising inflation, job losses, low external reserves and revenues are some of the economic shocks the Nigerian economy suffered in the year 2020. Although fiscal and other economic policies have been introduced to manage the nation's economy at both micro and macro levels, the nation has slid into a double recession. Tonight, on our end-of-the-year review, we beam our searchlight on Nigeria's economy in 2020 and look beyond the year, which has been characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity.
Projections by the International Monetary Fund for the year 2020 had showed a growth rate of 3.4% for the Nigerian economy as of April 2020. But that changed following the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, leading to lower oil prices and a shutdown of major economic activities, especially in the aviation, tourism and energy sectors. And then, only recently, The global body further announced that the Nigerian economy would witness a deeper contraction of minus 5.4% as against the 3.4% growth it projected in April. Key macroeconomic indices such as the rising inflation currently at 14.8%, low debt to GDP ratio, low external reserves and revenues continue to experience a downturn, but the global lender expects Nigeria's economy to rebound by 2.6% in 2021. This has also been echoed by the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed.
The Nigerian GDP has declined by minus 3.62%. In real terms, that is in the third quarter, following a much larger contraction of minus 6.1% in the second quarter of 2020. Following the traditional definition, this means that Nigeria is technically in a recession.
While the lockdown took a toll on businesses, the federal government, through the central bank, embarked on measures to reflate the economy through its intervention, running into billions of naira, targeting agriculture, manufacturing and pharmaceutical sectors. This intervention seems to have assisted a great deal as businesses begin to pick up gradually.
We saw the central bank reducing interest rates on its interventions and also injecting money into the economy in line with its development function. So all this also contributed in helping supporting growth, supporting economic recovery.
The downturn has also reflected in capital inflow in 2020. A total of $1.5 billion was received in the first quarter as against the $1.3 billion received in capital inflow in the second quarter. Other statistics show that non-oil sector growth declined by minus 6.05% in real terms during the second quarter of 2020, but the Nigeria Customs Service raked in between 4 to 6 billion naira worth of revenue daily since the border closure in October 2019, while prices of food, especially rice, spiked.
Beyond just passing the 2021 budget that is expected to be around 13.08 trillion, what is important is ensuring that the revenue to fund capital expenditure is available. But right now, the challenge we have in Nigeria is that of revenue crunch. The revenue to fund our budget is hard to come by. So for the government, looking at other sources of funding our budget, especially non-conventional sources, will really be important.
The COVID-19 pandemic is still taking its toll on the economy. While many see opportunities the situation presents, especially in terms of technological advancement, the government can also tap into it by creating better environments for the people to take advantage of and improve their well-being.
Well, joining me in the studio is our business correspondent, Chimezie Obiwago. Hi, Chime. Good to see you on this line.
Good to see you, Millicent. It actually feels different being on the other side of the divide.
I know. So tell us, Nigeria's economy, just as other economies around the world, took a big hit, especially with the pandemic. But tell us your highlights for the year 2020.
Well, I'll start by describing 2020 as a year like no other. And now talking about the highlights as concerns the economy, it's basically the disruptions caused by COVID-19. We saw government revenue dwindle so badly. We saw our foreign exchange earning come down. And why? Because Nigeria is heavily dependent on oil. And the COVID-19 pandemic actually took a hit on oil. We saw lockdowns, people were not moving, there was a lot of restrictions, planes were not flying, vehicles were not on the road. So there was no demand for oil. So prices came down. In fact, there was a point that prices went to negative. Traders were practically begging people to buy their oil. And of course, being an oil-dependent economy, it affected our reserves. And now we have a liquidity crisis in the foreign exchange market that the central bank is trying to manage. At a point, the central bank even had to adjust the Naira band. We called it devaluation, but they call it, an adjustment, and trying also to shore up liquidity. Again, another issue that formed 2020 is the NSAS protests that caused a lot of disruptions. We saw property, government property and individual property, destroyed. Insecurity issue that affected people in the agriculture sector, particularly the peasant farmers. We saw what happened in the north. Most of the food we eat come from the north. And then what do we have? Inflation. Inflation is currently at about 15% now. Talk about food inflation, 18%. And so looking at all of this, of course, we find ourselves getting into recession. So you have recession, you have inflation, and then that's stagflation. People lost their jobs. Misery index went up. People's purchasing power diminished. So it was that bad. So for me, there was no rich person in 2020.
Interesting. We do hope that, the status quo changes for 2021, yes?
Absolutely. The good news that we got this 2020, we saw the government reforms, the deregulation of the downstream sector, and the cost-reflective tariffs, the removal of the subsidy. Yes, those reforms perhaps may have come, with some kind of pains, but is it the way to go? Absolutely, it is the way to go. And remember, there's vaccine on the horizon. So
lots to look forward to.
Absolutely. Now, the stimulus package that the federal government had put in place, both the monetary policy and the fiscal authority, also gave a boost to the economy. The recession we had, people expected much more decline, but it was better.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Chime.
Thank you very much, Millicent.
In part two, after the break, more on our review of the economy in 2020, and we have the CEO of financial derivatives company, Mr. Bismarck Rawane, to discuss the issue. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. More crowds gather at NIMC offices across the country as applicants for the national identity number ask for further extension of the deadline for linking of NIN with their mobile phone SIMs. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy clarifies policy on NIN and mobile SIMs integration, says decision in linkage made about 11 months ago. We continue our 2020 sectoral review. Tonight, we turn our attention to the economy. And UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson signs post-Brexit trade deal after MPs have overwhelmingly approved the agreement with the EU. Let's now get some more insight into the performance of the Nigerian economy in the outgoing year. Mr. Bismarck Rawane, CEO of financial derivatives company and a member of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, joins us on the News at 10. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Millicent.
How would you describe what Nigeria's economy went through in 2020?
In 2 words, dreadful. 2020 was dreadful, and it was a sluggish decade. It wasn't 2020 alone. Before 2020 and the pandemic, we already had pre-existing conditions in Nigeria. So I think we have to look at it in the context of, one, what happened in 2020 and what happened before then, so that we lack the resilience to withstand the shocks which Chimeze was talking about earlier.
You've called the theme tonight a triage: inflection, reflection, and injection. What do you mean?
Well, the year 2021 will be for reflection. What lessons have we learned from the past? 2, inflection, where you will have a change in the growth trajectory from downward growth to upward growth. And more important, injection of the stimulus. Stimulus by the private sector, stimulus by the public sector, and stimulus by inward diaspora remittances. I think it's important to know that. But before we go into 2021, it's good to take some time out and look at what we call the year 2020. We have the good, the bad, and the ugly. What are the good things? The good things are 8 in all together. That's the good, the bad, and ugly you see there. The 8 points all together. 1 is that Nigeria is the 31st largest economy in the world, as you can see there. And number 2 is that Nigeria has the largest agricultural output of 84.2 billion in the world, 5th largest agricultural output in the world. 2nd largest producer of yams, roots, and tubers, next to China. The 5th largest producer of cocoa, 250 million tons. And we are the 5th largest producer of vegetables in Nigeria. Apart from that, we are also the 31st largest industrial output country. And look at Lagos is the 17th largest city in the world with 13.5 million people, rough estimates. But what is more interesting, that 4 of the 16 fastest growing cities in the world between the year 2020 and 25, as estimated by the economists today, is that Nnewi, Abuja, Uyo, and Port Harcourt. Nnewi is the 3rd fastest growing city in the world, growing at a rate of 29.6% in terms of population. Abuja is next with 28.4%. Abuja is the 4th largest growing city in the world. Uyo is the 7th largest growing city in the world, 28.3% growth. And Port Harcourt, of course, is the 14th largest, fastest growing city in the world. So look at this. These 4 cities, apart from Abuja, which is in the central, the 4 cities are in the southeast and south of Nigeria. And more than anything else, the 7th highest workers' remittances inflows into the world are from Nigeria, $24.3 billion in the year 2019. Now, what of the bad? The bad things are this. Nigeria has the 13th highest refugees country of origin. That is, the country's 13th largest number of people seeking refugee status in the world are from Nigeria. Secondly, Nigeria is the 21st worst air polluting country in the world. And the 3rd largest rate of deforestation, you can see that, and 15th highest inflation rate in the world, and 18th lowest median age in the world. So whilst the young age is good, but the young unproductive age is nothing. Then we go to the ugly. The ugly is that 16th highest applications for asylum by country of origin is from Nigeria. The 9th largest number of households from Nigeria. The Lagos city with the 11th worst infrastructure of Lagos, and 7th highest death rate from poor sanitation from Nigeria. So that's the ugly. But one thing we must know is that healthcare was not the only, COVID was not the only killer. COVID took 1,267 people roughly in Nigeria based on the testing. But malaria took about 97,200, while Lassa fever took about 121, and measles took about 291. So yes, COVID is a problem, but there are other problems as well. So if you're trying to solve the healthcare problem of COVID, you have to solve others. Now, what are the economic indicators? The economic indicators you can see, Mill said, is that compared to our peers, look at Nigeria, GDP minus 3.62, South Africa minus 6, Ghana minus 1. But look at the inflation rate. Nigeria is 14.89, South Africa 3.2, Ghana 9.8, Kenya 5.6, and Ivory Coast 1.7. But I want you to take note of this. Whilst the interest rates in Nigeria were 0.04 for treasury bills, all other countries, they had interest rates that were higher than the rate of inflation. And what did that lead to? You can see that Nigeria's exchange rate dropped by 13%. South Africa's exchange rate appreciated by 22%. Ghana stayed flat about 1.89. And so Kenya, Ivory Coast had a currency that appreciated by 6%. So Nigeria underperformed the rest, basically because inflation is high, unemployment is also high. Now, what do we expect next? In 2021, what we should be looking for is this. We forget 2020. There are key things that we need to look at. The projections for the year end of 2021 are as follows. GDP will grow at about 1.5%. Inflation will increase to 16 but come down to 12, which is good. And the exchange rate will hover around anywhere between 400 and 420, maybe getting to 450, but there will be some convergence and appreciation of the currency as the central bank stops the rationing of foreign exchange. The external reserves will decline somewhat, but we use to support manufacturing and output. The stock market rally, which is more or less a bubble, will kind of ease off. Power output will increase marginally, and unemployment will actually increase. So, what are the game changers? What are the game changers in 2021? 1, African Continental Free Trade Agreement. 2, the ECOWAS Protocol. 3, our changing trade partners will be trading more with Eastern Europe, the European Union, and Southeast Asia. Forex rationing will stop, and political squabbling will start because of the 2023 election. Domestic refining capacity will improve. You will have the Dangote petrochemical and refining capacity being unlocked. The budget will increase because of improved oil pricing. And more than anything else, the central bank might review its current interest rate policy. So where will you be December 2021? Where will you be at this time next year? 1, you will not be using face mask anymore. You most likely would have been vaccinated. you'll be traveling to other African countries without visa restrictions. 40% of the students will be online and virtual learning. You'll be using more of e-commerce and less on brick and mortar. But there are risks. There are risks that we must consider in 2021. There are huge risks. One risk is that the price of oil drop. Yeah?
I beg your pardon. I must ask you, I mean, should we anticipate more shocks in the post-pandemic era? And this is also perhaps bringing you back to your analysis of the good, the bad, and the ugly. We had the partial border closure before the peak of COVID-19, and then the full closure. Did that have any impact on the economy?
Well, it did have an impact. Basically, what it did was to make Nigeria a smuggler's paradise. You know, because anytime you close things down, people have a way of passing around it. And so they bypassed it. So even when the borders were reopened, you didn't see price of goods come down because the goods were already in the country. And it made unscrupulous custom officers richer and made smugglers, smugglers were smiling all the way to the bank. But like I was saying earlier, there are some risks that we run in 2021. The first risk is that there could be a sharp drop in the price of oil, or even an increase. If there's an increase in the price of oil, definitely we'll see ourselves going back to the old ways. And if there's a sharp drop, we'll have to make some adjustments. There could be insurgency in the northeast and in the Niger Delta vandalism. There could be a second or a third wave of infections we do not know. There could be resistance to reforms. But generally speaking, we think, and there could be NSAS and other protests, but generally speaking, the economy is bound to improve in 2021. 2021, by this time next year, you'll be better off than you are this year. And again, like we said, 2020 is a year that we'll prefer to forget than a year we prefer to remember. Thank you very much.
All right, a lot of hopefuls there. Thank you so much, Mr. Bismarck Rwani, CEO, Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you for having me.
When the News at 10 returns, Afrexim Bank and Credit Suisse complete $1 billion three-year syndicated term loan for Nigeria's Bank of Industry. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Babagana, Governor of Borno State, Babagana Zulum, is seeking collaboration with the federal government for the repatriation of Nigerians living in neighboring countries who fled the country following attacks by Boko Haram insurgents. The refugees who fled killings by terrorists since 2014 have been clamoring to return home. Governor Zulum was speaking after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in Abuja.
I'm here to brief Mr. President on some very important issues in our state, most especially on the issue of repatriation of Nigerians that are living in the Republic of Chad, in the Republic of Niger, and in the Republic of Cameroon. Borno State government will collaborate with the federal government in ensuring their repatriation within the shortest possible time. Because they have stayed for a long time, they want to come back home. There is an ongoing agitation by them, and I think government has to listen to them. And President has given me the assurances that he will support this very important initiative in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. We need to holistically look into the issue of security. Inshallah, the government of Borno State will collaborate with the federal government with a view to bringing stability in the Northeast, in the entire Northeast in the year 2021. The President has assured Nigerians, has assured people of Borno State that we shall see improvement in the year 2021, and I'm optimistic that we shall see it. But God willing, I think the President is up to the task.
Meanwhile, 7 hunters have died from a landmine planted by Boko Haram militants in a village near Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. According to a local vigilante source, the ill-fated hunters, who were on a routine patrol with the military, drove on the explosives that killed them instantly. The number of affected soldiers could not be ascertained. Boko Haram attacks have increased in recent times on the highways and in villages in parts of Borno state, but the military says it has continued to record successes in its onslaught against the insurgents. And away from security, Meccano Motors, a division of Meccano International Limited, has made an entry into the Nigerian automotive market by partnering with Geely Motors, a Chinese automotive brand. Now, Meccano International Limited is now the sole franchise of the Geely Auto brand in Nigeria and has built a state-of-the-art assembly plant to locally assemble the vehicles. The result of the partnership is the Geely EC7 sedan and Geely X7 Sports.
Durable, high-tech, luxurious and tough are the challenges of Nigerian roads. The Meccano Geely Auto brand capacity is demonstrated in this test drive. Assembled in Nigeria and ready for your everyday engagements, the Geely EC7 sedan and Geely X7 Sports may just be what you need. Born out of a partnership between Meccano Motors, a division of Meccano International Limited, and Geely Motors, the modern automobiles are built with features to give a joyful experience. Quality backed with affordability, the Meccano Geely Auto brand aims to boost the nation's economy through job creation.
The partnership between Meccano and Geely is a very good one for Nigeria. It is born out of national interest. Geely has been in Nigeria before, and later they went back because of certain reasons. For them to come back, having Meccano as their franchise, sole franchise holder is for a purpose, and that is national interest. 1, to create jobs for Nigerians. Second, to use the creation of jobs to stimulate economic recovery. Third, to transfer technology to Nigerian youths who need to be empowered.
Geely is a global vehicle, and as I can say, it's an advanced technology, one step ahead of the whole technology. The vehicle moves faster, but gradually with low fuel consumption.
With Meccano International, now the sole franchise of Geely Auto brand in Nigeria, the company has built one of the largest modern auto assembly plants in West Africa, where the vehicles are assembled, configured and inspected for secondary damages from start to finish. And to ensure its auto customers run their vehicles with peace of mind, the company is working out a friendly auto finance plan and covering the Nigerian landscape with after-sales service centers.
For some more business news, here's Teniola Shibowale.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The African Export-Import Bank says it has completed a $1 billion loan facility for Nigeria's development bank, the Bank of Industry. The transaction was arranged with Credit Suisse and involves a syndicate of 27 investors and is the largest international syndicated loan to a Nigerian financial institution since the impact of COVID-19 took its toll on the country's economy. Meanwhile, the president of Afrexim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, says the deal demonstrates the capacity of the Pan-African Trade Finance Institution to continue its vital activities in Africa under the COVID-19 pandemic. The latest transaction, which follows a previous €1 billion syndicated facility for the BOI, which closed in March 2020, is expected to provide much-needed support to Nigerian businesses across key sectors. Now, about 556.1 billion naira worth of maturing treasury bills, as well as open market operation bill, is expected to hit Nigeria's financial market this week as the year draws to a close. Analysts say the expected inflow will boost system liquidity levels by 1.87%, up from the 545.9 billion naira level, which was recorded on Thursday last week. Nigeria's treasury bill secondary market has witnessed moderate improvement in activity levels in 4 sessions before the Christmas break. While oil prices have remained steady today, supported by a drop in U.S. crude inventories, as well as the coronavirus fiscal aid package deal by U.S. lawmakers and the government. International oil price benchmark Brent crude futures rose 0.2% to $51.19 a barrel, while its contemporary, the U.S. WTI crude, was up 0.2% at $48.09 per barrel. That's at 9:45 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, traders say oil prices could gain strength as vaccination programs around the world begin next year, which will allow countries to relax restrictions on movement and business activity. An additional 213 billion naira is added to the total value of listed equities on the NSE today after investors expanded bargain hunting for value stocks. Chimeze is back to tell us more.
Thanks, Tenny. The bull continues to dominate the market even as the year gradually winds down. We can see the index tiptoeing into the 40,000 mark, closing 1.03% up today. Again, the industrial sector is bubbling and giving a great support to the main index. Thanks again to Boa Cement. And we saw some kind of slowdown in the banking sector today because investors seem satisfied already with performance. However, traders will tell you we are likely to have an early bull run in 2021. Let's look at activity. I'm very much interested in the value traded, almost 12 billion naira. The volume of shares traded was about 373 million. And back to the value, Dangote Cement contributed a major chunk of that because of its share buyback program. The company got an approval to buy back its shares, and the execution of the first tranche started today and will be completed tomorrow. The figure for the first tranche is about 85.2 million shares. 33 million was done today, so they will do much more tomorrow. What that means is that Dangote Cement is likely to impact the all-share index as they have a lot to buy tomorrow. There is no doubt the year will end bullish for investors at the equities market. But let's wait until Thursday to see about that. Back to you, Tenny.
Thanks a lot, Chimize. Let's wait and see. Meanwhile, U.S. stock markets made significant rebound today amid renewed vaccine optimism, while traders looked for clues on additional fiscal stimulus. But let's find out how their counterparts from other parts of the world ended midweek trading session. And that's business news tonight. I'm Teniola Shubowale. It's back to you, Millicent.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Tani. And to legal matters, a federal high court in Abuja has admitted the original copy of the University of Ibadan degree certificate of a witness as part of efforts to establish the certificate forgery suit instituted against the Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, by the All Progressives Congress. The certificate, belonging to Professor Emmanuel Balogun, who also graduated from the University of Ibadan alongside Governor Obaseki, was admitted as exhibit by Justice Ahmed Mohammed at the resumed hearing of the suit. The APC, who invited the witness for the tendering of the documents of the original certificate, wants the court to compare the witness certificate with that of Governor Obaseki. But the witness admits that he has never cited the degree certificate issued to the Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, by authorities of the University of Ibadan. Lawyer to Mr. Obaseki, however, insists that the governor duly graduated from the University of Ibadan. Still ahead on the news at 10, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson signs post-Brexit trade deal after MPs have overwhelmingly approved the agreement with the EU. That's from the international scene. Please stay with us. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has signed the post-Brexit trade deal after MPs backed it by a vote 521 to 73. The agreement, hammered out with Brussels over 9 months, sets out a new business and security relationship between the UK and its biggest trading partner. Meanwhile, 15 people, including children, have been buried in a landslide in a remote region of Papua New Guinea. Many were asleep in a longhouse near a mine where they had been panning for gold. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A series of powerful aftershocks have rocked central Croatia following a magnitude 6.4 earthquake late on Tuesday. The new 4.8 and 4.7 magnitude tremors struck at around 6:15 local time on Wednesday morning, causing further damage to buildings. They came as rescuers scoured the rubble in dozens of villages near Petrinja overnight, but no new victims were found. At least 7 people are known to have died in Tuesday's quake. Rescue teams spent the night scouring the rubble of damaged buildings in the search for survivors. Many were too afraid to return to their homes overnight in case aftershocks caused more damage. Some people slept in their cars or stayed with relatives. About 200 people sheltered in a military barracks. A landslide in a Norwegian village has left at least 9 people injured and buried houses under what appears to be a huge mudslide. Police say 26 people are unaccounted for in Gjerdrum, which lies some 25 kilometers northeast of the capital Oslo. Several hundred people have been evacuated from the village. It's thought heavy precipitation may have made the soil unstable, causing the landslide in the early hours of Wednesday. The Oxford AstraZeneca anti-COVID vaccine has been approved for use in the UK, with the first doses due to be given on Monday amid rising coronavirus cases. Vaccination centres in the UK will now start inviting patients to come and get the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine from next week. It is considered essential because it is easier to store and distribute, as it can be kept at a normal fridge temperature, unlike the Pfizer-BioNTech jab that has to be kept at -70 degrees. British Health Secretary Matt Hancock welcomed the news, saying it marked a significant moment in the fight against the virus.
Accelerate the number of people who...
At least 5 people have been killed and dozens more wounded in an attack on Aden Airport in Yemen, shortly after a plane carrying the newly formed government arrived from Saudi Arabia. Loud blasts and gunfire were heard at the airport shortly after the plane arrived. The cabinet members, including Yemeni Prime Minister as well as Saudi Ambassador to Yemen, were transferred safely to the city's presidential palace. A local security source said 3 mortar shells landed on the airport's hull. The government in Senegal is being criticised for its response to heavy rains which continue to leave thigh-high stagnant water in the suburbs of the capital Dakar. Over 20 neighbourhoods in the capital's suburbs have been hit by thick, muddy water. Many locals likened their situation to floods in 2009 and 2012, crises which the authorities promised would be averted in future through a flood management programme worth $1.4 billion. However, civil society groups and opposition leaders are asking where the money went, given that over 16,000 people have been critically impacted by the latest deluge. Similar concerns have been expressed by the World Bank. And finally, a dog stole the show in Bolivia when it ran onto the field during a professional match. The canine invaded the field, running, jumping and wagging his tail while holding a football boot in his mouth during the match in a first division game between the Strongest and Nacional. Players and the referee struggled to win back possession from the dog, holding up play for around 3 minutes. Finally, a player from the home side, Nacional, carried the animal off the pitch. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. The Ministry of Youth and Sports Development has announced that Nigeria will compete in 11 sports at the Tokyo Olympics. The ministry says Nigeria will only leverage on sports with comparative advantage and prospects of a podium finish at the Games. The Delta State government has announced that 9 athletes have been granted scholarships to study in the United States of America. Prominent among the athletes are Onome Ogbeni, Ogenekaro Brume, Princess Kara, Victory George and Favor Ofili. The government says the athletes will leave the country in 2 weeks' time, which means they will not be a part of the National Sports Festival in 2021. In the English Premier League, league leaders Liverpool FC and Newcastle United had to settle for a goalless draw at St James's Park. Newcastle produced a brilliant defensive performance in the game to keep the Merseyside Giants Liverpool from scoring throughout the game. Jurgen Klopp's men remain on top of the league despite the draw and will enter 2021 as league leaders. That's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, AY. And the main news again. More crowds besiege NIMC offices and other centres across the country today as applicants for the National Identity Number registration. Some of them asked for further extension of the deadline for linking of NIN with their mobile phone SIMs. Also today, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy clarified the policy on NIN and mobile SIMs integration, noting that the decision was made about 11 months ago. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Woroka. Good night.